everyone. So the energy today is amazing. It's really strong and intense, and I'm breathing a lot. And right before I was going to press live on this Facebook live chat, my entity came out and started doing casting. And then halfway through it, I saw in my mind that she came out to do that because I was supposed to videotape it to show. And I thought to myself, well, that's interesting because I'm not really in a place of being 100% comfortable of sharing that. And so after it happens, I'm still really intense. So I have to ground my energy and my heart rate gets up really high. So that just ended. And then I decided to go ahead and hit, the live button. So that's why I'm a little short of breath. So I'm just letting you know. Anyway, so one thing that I am comfortable with talking about, and I've talked about it a little bit, but I want to share with you a little bit about my journey over the last 2 years and my connection with the moon. And when I talk about that, like there's a whole story to that. And in like May of 2016, my Facebook page was private and I had 325 friends. And then I decided to open it up and be public because I wanted to be able to share everything that I was sharing privately. And so in 9 months, it jumped up to almost 30,000 of us and so much more. And it's been an amazing journey. And I like to be open and share with you. And so shortly after that, in May, whenever I opened my Facebook account, I was led to do that in my thoughts. Just within the next few weeks, I was start experiencing physical activations. I didn't really know what it was, but I knew it was something bigger than me. And I remember I would cry about it and just asking for some guidance to let me know what was going on because that something huge was happening. And I knew it. I felt Jesus and like God and all. It was interesting. Plus, my ET connection was starting to align. And so I was in a very interesting place. And then so over the next few months, leading up to July in 2016, I started to transition out of my life where I was. And I felt the sudden urge to just go. Like I wanted to just go do some humanitarian work. I was looking into traveling to other countries, all kinds of stuff. I was ready to just leave where I was. And that's what I did. And so on July the 11th in 2016, me and Michael left Texas, my road trip buddy, my best friend, and we traveled around the United States for a couple of months in a car, and then we traveled a little bit on foot, and then I took off and backpacked and slept in a tent around the country for 3 months with travel mates. And, I'd never done anything like that in my life. And before I left Texas, I decided to leave, and within 2 days, I had sold a little bit of stuff, but just got rid of and left everything else that I owned and just had what was in the car. And of course, when I started walking, all I had was my backpack. So I learned to transcend fear and property and all kinds of things. And then, but during that travel, that's when things really changed. I went on the road July the 11th. And then by the end of the month, I was in South Dakota going to see William. And that night, Source pulled me from his living room and took me and Michael on a journey that I know I'll never forget. And I'm sure that he hasn't either. And it was interesting how it happened because I was sitting in William's living room with Michael and we were watching a show called Ancient Aliens. And it was an episode about the pyramids and then a portal in the Yucatan Peninsula. And then it talked about the Chinese prophecy of the moon. And they showed a picture of an image when I have seen the moon one other time. And it was one of those moments, but that was years before, and I didn't know what it was. And I suddenly sat up and I started crying. The energy hit me so hard. Like it was one of those like super moments. And I knew that I'd seen that. And then that's what it was. Well, then that activated me. Well, from that moment, I started feeling like what I felt was like a dark presence in my belly. But what it was is I was being so charged up with energy. So I told Michael, I was like, we got to go. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, we have to go. And I told William, I was like, we're going to head out. You know, I really didn't know what to say because I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that we had to get up and go in my mind. So Michael and I got in the car and I was driving. And before we pulled out of the driveway, my jaw was chattering up and down like I was cold. And my legs were jumping up and down. And I wasn't doing any of that. But somehow I was still able to drive while that was going on. And of course, Michael's in the passenger seat and he doesn't know what's going on. And I can barely speak. I don't know what to say. And then that's when it changed. I remember following behind William for just a little bit. He was driving us out of town. And then all of a sudden, the energy pulled me to turn off on a side street to the right. And I thought in my mind, where are we going? And then for the next like hour, I drove, but I was not there. And it was interesting because I just remember looking up on occasion and I would see the name of a road and it would be like some cosmic name. And I would feel myself turn the car down that road. And then it took us about an hour and a half outside of where we were to this property. I still don't know where we were. But I came back too. Like right before we pulled into this place, it was like, whoop, I was present again and I knew where I was. Now, I didn't realize that I didn't know where I was before because it was all happening so fast. This is since then when my mind's been able to show me. And so all of a sudden, boom, we're on this 4-lane highway. There's no street lights or anything like that, but there's houses, spread out, beautiful property. And it was like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning. And I remember I started feeling the DNA activations for the first time. It feels like there's water on the skin or like something's on the skin or whatever, beaming. I started feeling that. And I could tell, like I started feeling it on my right arm to this way, and then on my left arm this way. And in my mind, I was told that's how you know which way to turn. So whenever I would be pulled to the right, I knew that I was supposed to make a right. And so it was like they were giving me directions on how to drive based on the direction that they were about to give me in my body. And that's exactly what happened. And so, this whole time, I'm just driving and listening, and I don't know how to do any of this stuff at this point. This had never happened to me before, But I knew I wasn't scared, and I just knew to trust, even though I was a little bit nervous at times. And Michael, I just remember he was being freaked out sometimes, and then he was cool, and then we were both in the same parallel, but it was happening to me, and he was just there, and it was amazing. And so we got closer to the property where we were supposed to be. And I started noticing, the body things. And then I could tell that we were pulling up to a location, a driveway with a mailbox. And they wanted me to turn right into it. And there were no street lights or anything. And I didn't see a house, so I could tell it was like a long driveway. So I remember turning right into the driveway, sitting there, and I remember Michael and I having the conversation, and I was like, we can't drive down in there. I mean, we were both in agreement, and he was like, Rory, what are we doing here? And I was like, dude, I don't know, right? Like, I'm still not sure yet. I said, it's just somehow it was just trust, And so I was like, let's just get out of here. It was late. So we backed out. I backed out back onto the road. And as I'm driving to keep going forward down the highway, the car starts to stall, like that. And I couldn't drive, like it kept stalling. And I looked at Michael and I was like, they want me to turn around. And he's like, who's they? And I'm like, I don't know. But I knew, I knew, and so did he. And so I was like, I'm going to turn back around. And we're both like, I don't know what's going on, sort of freaking out a little bit. So I turn back around, and as soon as I do a U-turn, the car started driving fine. Everything was like back to normal. And so I had to do another U-turn to get back on the 2-lane highway going in the other direction. And I pulled back down into the driveway for the second time. So we pull down further into the driveway, and then all of a sudden we come up on this wrought iron, like you would see over a cemetery with like a family name over it or something like that kind of thing. And I wish I could remember the name, because I at first I thought, oh my God, this is some like haunted house, But then I see it was probably a burial ground, because I was in South Dakota. Well, my entity agrees too. And so anyway, and so whenever I pulled up to that, Michael was like, no way. Or maybe I was, I don't know. So I was like, no, this is freaked out. He's freaked out. So I was like, let's just go. So I backed out of the driveway, and I started to go straight, and then the car started to stall again. And then at this point, I was like, Michael, we just have to go. And there's just nothing we could do at that point. And this whole time, it's like chill. It's just so interesting. And so I turned back around, and then we pulled down into the driveway a third time. And this time we go all the way down to the bottom, and we see that it's a house. And it's a 2-story, little townhouse, on probably 10 acres of land. And there's a light on the inside of the house, but there's no cars or anything there. And I thought, what are we doing at someone's house at 1:30 in the morning? But I just knew to trust. So I just sat there for a minute, and then Michael and I got out, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, do I go over, knock on the door, or are they in there? Like, I thought I was going to open the door, like walk into another dimension or something. That's what I was hoping for. Anyway, so I actually go over to the door and knock on it, and no one came to the door. And then I realized it's because no one was at home, right? How convenient. So as soon as I got done knocking on the door and I turn around, there it was. And it was the moon. But it wasn't the moon that we're shown in the sky. It would look like that same moon that I saw in the Ancient Aliens episode just a few hours earlier, or just like an hour and a half earlier, right? I was in that place in William's living room to see that episode, so I could see that moon, because I was about to be shown it just a couple of hours later. And there it was. And so I was just like, it was like one of those holy shit moments. And Michael, we were both just like paralyzed by it. And what it looks like is between a 3/4 to a full moon, almost like an egg shape. And it is like the sleekest, shiniest piece of metal you've ever seen in your life. Like an Airstream bus, but way shinier, but it has a bright light to it, so it doesn't look as shiny. Like you can't see the reflection off of it. You can just see the metal. And so there's no lines, there's no bolts, there's no anything on it. But it hovers and it moves, and you can just feel the vibration off of it. And so in that moment, when I saw it, and it took, my human had to come back around, full circle after the holy crap moment. In my mind, I knew what I was supposed to do. And it was because a week earlier, it was like one of those synchronistic things, when you see something and you read it, and then later on it pops back up because you're in that situation and you don't remember where it came from. I can't find the article, and I've looked for it, but I read about a story or something, how someone activated their third eye by doing this specific exercise, and how you actually see the mandala form when you do it. And in that moment, when I saw the moon and I stood back, that's when I saw the vision in my mind that that's what I was there to do. The moon came to activate me. Like, apparently it was not going to happen on my own. And so that's what I was shown in that moment. And so I was very humbled. I cried a lot, like, it's still a trigger. But a good one. It was amazing. Oh. And so I'm explaining this to Michael, I think. I'm not really sure. But I think I said something about it. I don't remember. And I said, I think I'm supposed to stand here and stare at the moon. And he was like, okay. Like, he was just such a trooper, you know, like, it was amazing. And so I stood there and I tried to do what the exercise was. And this is what it is. This is what I was shown to do. I was supposed to look at the moon, which was full, I believe. So it was interesting that it was the 3/4 size, but I believe it was full. I can't be 100% sure though. I'll have to look that up. I think it was like July 3rd or July 4th, 23rd or 24th of 2016. Anyway, so you have to stare at the moon. But when you stare at it, you have to push your eyes out toward your peripheral. Like you're straining your eyes. And what that does is that puts pressure to the middle of the brain. When you push your eyes out, see what a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't either until I studied it, is that eye movement, the nerve to the eyes is connected to the back of the eye, to the middle of the brain, and the midbrain is where the pineal gland is. And so that controls eye movement. So, and I learned this later. I didn't know any of this beforehand. And so I just knew to do it. And so you stare at it, and, you know, I think you can do it by staring at other things. I don't know if you have to look at the moon, but I've encouraged a couple of people to start practicing this themselves to work the brain. You know, it's whatever feels good to you. So that's what I was doing. I was staring at it. Like, you have to, like, let me see. Yeah, you have to look forward and just kind of let your eyes relax and then push out as hard as you can. And you have to keep doing it. Like, you'll get tired because it's a muscle, right? And so you push a little bit and then you can't do it anymore, and then you sit, and then you push a little bit more and then you'll stop. And then your eyes will water. You have to push through that. And so I tried it and tried it and tried it for like probably 10 minutes or so. And then I was like, bag this, you know, I can't do it, Michael. It's not my time. I thought it was, you know, on to the next thing, like it'll happen when it's supposed to, and we get back in the car. So we pull out of the driveway, and the moon's still like right there. And I can't stop looking at it, you know, it's like I can't help it, it's just pulling on me. So we pull out of the driveway, and I go to take off again, and it won't let me drive. So I look at Michael, and I was like, he was like, all right. So we turn around, and we go back. And I get out of the car, and this time I was like, I'm going to do it this time. And I went to the backyard, and he stayed in the front hanging out. And I sat down on the ground with my legs crossed, and there it was in like all of its glory. I mean, it's indescribable how big and massive it felt like, and how low. That was what was so amazing. Not way up in the sky like we see it. And so I sat down in the backyard with my legs crossed, and I was just staring at it. And I tried a couple of times, and all of a sudden I just hung my head, and I got humbled. And in my mind, I was like, Lori, just ask for help. And you know what I did? Like, and this was very early on. There's maybe, I don't even know if there was 1,000 or 2 of you at that point. And in my mind, I was like, just reach out to your Facebook family and think about that joy and ask them for help. And I was really, you know, asking the guardians, which are all of you too, for assistance to like give me the strength to do that. And that like humbled my soul. I cried. And then I looked up and then it was just like, I did it. And it was so cool because like I had to wipe my tears, out of my eyes. And I just relaxed and felt the warmth around me. And I just stared and stared and I kept pushing and then I kept pushing until I couldn't push anymore. And then it was like something broke or something clicked. I was straining so hard to push out where I almost couldn't do it anymore. And then it was just like complete stillness. And the one moon that I was staring at, it was pushing apart. It broke off like real fast, like two spaceships. And it was so clear. And that's when I knew I was activated. And how you do it is this. When you first start staring at the moon and you're pushing and pushing, you'll see it in one round circle. Well, as you're pushing out of your peripheral, you'll start to see it separate. And it'll become the mandala flower, like the inside of my tattoo, the seed of life. It breaks off and it becomes another one and another one and another one and another one. So there's all these loops that go around. Well, when you get that top loop back into it, it becomes a mandala, and that's when you push that's when you activate. And that's what happened to me. And so I realized, okay, so then after I realized that that's what happened, I gave thanks and I just sat there for a minute and brushed myself off and walked around the front of the house, and I was like, all right, Michael, let's go. He was like, that's it? I was like, yeah, dude, it's done. He was like, okay. Like it was just another walk in the park, another day it was like, wow. And and the moon was so big. And then we pulled out of the driveway. We started driving off. And then that's when they started working on me. Like, so much upgrading happened in that very moment in my body and like the scanning. And I was just, while I was driving, it was unreal. I had just been activated. And then so all of a sudden, poof, I was getting my first initial upgrading. And then all of a sudden the moon had gone way back up out in the sky. And when I saw it moving, not at first, but after it had already changed back into the normal shape and the look that we see it. And then I saw it move further out, and it sort of got this, that antique light look it gets, and it had clouds come in around it. And I was like, look at the moon now. Like, I couldn't believe it. And so nothing has been the same ever since, to say the least. And so, it's been an interesting year and a half, or a year and 7 months now, evolving into all of this. And I know a lot of you are going through a lot of the same experiences that I am. And so I feel like that, I had to have that happen to me in the way that I did, so that I could have solid knowledge, visual knowledge, for the things that I'm channeled in my mind. Like, I've always been into like the ET alien conspiracy stuff here and there, and I've been aligned to see a lot of stuff I see now my whole life, by the way. But not to the point of like, being, it was just like one of those things that I used to like to watch on TV, or I was always pulled to see it, but it wasn't something that I was like into. So for me to go from being one way to being this way with just that experience alone, I had to have those things happen so that I could have the clarity, just like everyone else. We all see the things that align with your channel within you. Like a lot of people will ask me questions like, how do you know this? Or how are you doing that? And I'm just like, well, I can start with as far back as I can remember. Do you have a pen and a piece of paper? Like, there's been all these snapshots of things that I've seen and been aligned with that I've somehow, the brain they've all been filed away in my mind's file, that I call it, the subconscious mind, because since I've been awoken, my mind has gone, like, my mind has been erased. Like, all of the things from before, like my regular human life, I hardly remember much of any of that stuff. Like, there's no emotion, nothing. It's just been totally rewritten. But it's just cleared out the space, and is clearing out the space more and more for all of the things that I have seen that are confirmations of what I know now. And that's with anything in life. And so it's hard to like put it into one specific format of how we get to where we are, because it's a life's journey. And it's cool. And since I was activated by the moon in July of 2016, during that time that I was traveling on the road over that next 5 months, I was shown some amazing things. And the people that traveled with me saw some amazing things too. Like the coolest thing, and I actually have it on video, is, and I have some amazing pictures. You just wouldn't believe the weather that we were shown, because ETs travel in the weather and storm clouds and things like that. And so, right after a big storm where I have a photo of a double red rainbow, and they never rain on me either. It's just always around me. Like, the pictures prove it. It's just so cool. And right after a storm, I believe we were in Wyoming. I can't remember. But it was out there, in the native land. I saw teleportation, and I have it on video. And what it is it's rainbow lightning. And it's cool because Michael saw it first. He was in the back seat. And then when I looked up, I saw it. And I just happened to be able to get my camera up, the window down, and to get it on video. And so afterwards, I was like, I don't know what the hell that was, but I know I'll get the answer. And then sure enough, I did. And I know it was teleportation in the form of rainbow, light travel. Yes, apparently that's correct. So, yeah. And then, of course, that whole thing that just happened, I know some of you know what's going on, but I was in more native land in June of this past year, visiting Heather in Luzerne, Iowa. It's a very interesting place. And that's when this entity that's with me now possessed my body. Like, Emily and Heather were there, and Rebecca was there, and, there were several of us there, and got to see that process take place. And so I've been evolving within that since then. And what I see is since I've shared my videos with this, a couple of you have shown me your videos of it happening to you. And some of you have spoken of experiencing, bits of it. Sometimes it's, mushroom induced, and then sometimes it happens naturally for people. Sometimes it's DMT. For me, it's natural all the time. And it wasn't always like this. It's progressed, like it's almost like I've formed a relationship with this entity, and I'm learning her, which I know it's now, I know it's a female. I wasn't sure at first, but I had a feeling. And I know it's native. I don't know what tribe. Sometimes I feel like it's Hopi, the Blue Kachina, and then sometimes I feel the pull to the Mayan. But she's been showing a lot of Egyptian stuff sometimes, and then lately she's been doing this. So I feel like maybe that's like Egyptian, or I'm not really sure. It's usually, I got a heart palpitation. So yeah, I guess it's Egyptian now, and I need to slow down. See, she's like really strong in me right now. So, it's not harmful or anything, but it is a lot on my body. So I stay as healthy, as I can, and I take it easy and rest. And it's an interesting relationship. It's a healer. I know that for sure. She's been showing me the steps of the way that she's evolving, and I've seen her evolve. And like when she's casting, I see in my mind what's happening most of the time. And I've seen her go through different stages, like on the night of 12/20, on 12/21, she was awarded a crown. And, she does the magic sign and then the diamond, the triangle, and then she'll put this up. And so that's a new thing. And since that's happened, her magic or, the casting or whatever healing she's doing has elevated also. And so I know that we're doing a lot of portal work. I've been shown that. We are letting in ascended masters and higher entity beings. I know that for a fact. And so it's not anything harmful. There's not like any darkness coming through me. I would know. And when I do feel it, I'm hypersensitive, aware of my thought, my flow of my brain. And so I'm able to, in my mind, tell the dark entities, the dark feelings or whatever to leave. And they have to once they're recognized. And sometimes I have to repeat it a few times. And then I always say, I sage my heart with love and light. And I say that a few times and then it's like amazing. It totally changes. So entity travel is true. We are channels. I mean, all of this is just, I'm sharing it with you as it's happening to me. I ground within the flow before I share a lot because I like to learn good, solid knowledge and wisdom, that I'm given about it before I start talking about it. So, and, it helps because a lot of you are coming forward and are talking about the things that you're feeling and that you're going through. And it inspires me because there's something happening on a much deeper level than I think the majority of the population of this planet knows about. And it's really cool to be aligned within this frequency with you all because we are here for a much bigger cause than the outside world is showing you. It's part of it, but when you listen, when you feel it, you know. She's been crying a lot today. Like, this is not even me. Like, earlier, whenever I was crying about the moon, that was me. Because, it's an emotion, but this is not. Like, I noticed that she was doing it earlier before I made the video. I was crying, and in my mind, I was shown that, Lori, it's not you. And I could literally feel myself separated from that emotion. So I knew it wasn't me. And I could tell because the casting was happening. And so that tells me that she's very, very happy with what's going on right now. And that's across the board. And so, we are changing across the board. And it's way cool that this little pocket of people, all of you and me, we've been pulled together by the law of attraction. Because our frequencies are being raised to one that is matching. That's why you and I are talking right now. And so when we recognize that that's what's happening, life becomes something different because you realize you're part of something much bigger. And then you're like, And it's so cool because if you look down through the threads of most of the posts that I make, you'll meet a bunch of people that are in line with this mission and you can add them and they're happy about it. Jump into conversations and ask questions. Like, I may not always be able to get to it, but everyone is there assisting everyone. Like, that's the family that we've grown in this space. And it's really great. that was me and her. Because it does make me happy. And so today's just a good day. Like, you know, I'm just all about getting real and just being real and being authentic, because when we're that way, it lights the path for other people. And so it's cool, and it doesn't cost a dime. Kindness is free, and we all have it in us. And if someone's not kind, let them know. And it's up to them how to react, and then you get to make the choice how to move. That's the balance between humans that we must have. If more people did that, less people would start, like, you know, we would start making people in a smart way be accountable for their actions, and then we can then see how they want to choose. And it's important that we be happy in this life. And you know, it all starts with our thought processes, and that's it. And when we, you know, get past all the stuff from the past, we get to align with what's going on right now. And that, to me, is my drive. Because the more I keep going to the visions that I see in my mind, my drive, since I've been like activated. I mean, I was renting paddle boards on the beach in Texas. Like, I was done with the restaurant business. I had retired. I was doing what I wanted to do. I was in a bathing suit with music every day. And then all of a sudden the universe was like, no, we got something else planned for you. And so that's how I ended up sitting here. And so, you know, I was not prepared for any of this stuff. I was living the life and, you know, on the coast of Texas. Yeah. So when we stay in the lane that we're in, that we know that, well, that we see, get in that lane. And then it's okay to transcend things along the way, because on your journey to get to where you see, that's where you experience the magic. It's like going down the yellow brick road, right? Like, you meet these cool emotions. You transcend all these fears to get to, you know, the Emerald City. And it's just like that. So pick up your fear, your mind, your courage, all those things. And just keep in the lane. And it's okay to swerve off sometimes, but just be aware of the swerve, you know? I mean, things don't stay perfect because we have to learn to get in line first. We're reteaching ourselves. That's why it's called rebirth. I mean, I know, like, whenever I got activated, I didn't know what was happening, but I would say, dang, it feels like rebirth. I feel like I'm a baby, like, learning to, like, talk. And it was because my speech, my brain, was being reprogrammed. And then I remember at one point thinking I felt like a toddler. And then I remember thinking like a teenager, you know, these different stages. I was literally, like, mentally aware of that I actually spoke it. And so now I feel like I'm coming into my adulthood. You know, I mean, but I'll always still be a kid, because that's the beauty of it, is to align with that childlike state of mind. And that's not taking things personally and laughing and just seeing that frequency is frequency and just staying in the lane. And then it becomes fun, even when it's not, because you always have that happy space. You always know you have that. When you align with that, with this, your heart, it never goes away. You can't turn that flame off. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool. So if any of you have any cool stories about your awakening and what's going on, please feel free to leave your comments, you know, and let us know your story. Also, email us at herbfrequency@gmail.com and let us hear your stories, and we'll feature you on our website. Welcome to the moon, family. I love you. I said welcome to the moon.